Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, A Pop of Culture. I am your host, the Esoteric and Facetious, and I talk about subjects I'm passionate about relating to pop culture, social justice, the human experience, and how the three interact from a Black, bisexual, millennial perspective. Everything I say should be taken with a grain of salt, as I'm simply a college student who loves thinking critically and discussing topics I'm interested in. However, that being said, my youth shouldn't be your sole reason to critique my views. If you disagree, unless it's truly relevant. If you want to debate any points I make, let's have a civil conversation. Feel free to check out my first video essay titled Aaliyah, Processing Death as a Young Person and the Impact of Celebrity Death on Their Fans. My second video essay, The Problem of Legend Talk and the Death of Real Music. And my third video essay where I talk about if we should engage in reductive conversations about colorism, transphobia, and homophobia. Mentioned videos will be linked in the cards and in the description box below. And if you're watching this after the initial upload, there's even more content for you to check out. Also, feel free to check out and subscribe to my cover channel, A Pop of Culture Sings, which is linked below, linked in the cards, and also featured in my channel section on this channel, where I will be covering my favorite songs. I'm a singer and I want to grow my abilities and share my passion with the world through YouTube. I love singing and music, especially throwback R&B music and pop. So definitely check it out if it interests you. New uploads will be made to each channel weekly. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and make sure to hit that bell so you're the first to know when I upload new content. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and like what you hear, please subscribe to this podcast and give it a 5-star review. It'll help to grow this platform and share a message of critical consumption of pop culture. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please subscribe so you can get updates when I post a new podcast. To stay up to date with this show, you can follow me on Instagram at apopofculturepod, on Twitter at _popofculture, and TikTok at apopofculturesings. Today's topic for discussion is, would we even really want to have an afterlife? Side note, A Pop of Culture is available on an array of podcast streaming platforms, so if you want to listen to A Pop of Culture on one of those sources, then just go to the link in the description and go to the anchor page, and it will show you everywhere where you can listen to it. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get into the topic. Trigger warning for mentions of death, sexual assault, and mass genocide. In times like these, to provide some background information, I wrote this episode in late April, and I'm actually recording it now in June 19th. So that's gonna provide some details. When I was writing this, I'm writing this in late April 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has killed many and will kill many more, which is occurring months after the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, Gianna, and 7 others in a tragic helicopter crash. May the victims of the helicopter crash and COVID-19 all rest in peace. Though death has and will always be a part of life, the occurrence of a tragedy of that magnitude and then a pandemic that has killed so many has, in my opinion, brought death a lot more attention than it would have normally, nationally. And in times like these, where we're more aware of our mortality, we tend to think about what death means and if it's truly the end. As a young person, the thought that an accident could occur that would make me no more, even just the fact that one day my consciousness, the person I am, the thoughts that I have, the essence of my soul. As I write this phrase, I have no clear idea of what exactly the phrase, the essence of my soul, means, but essentially what makes me me could at some indeterminate time be blown out of me like the flame out of a candle. It's worrisome because I like thinking, processing, and having new experiences, learning, growing, and to think that that could stop indefinitely beyond my control and I no longer be the me I know as me is frightening. This is where I feel a lot of comfort from many comes in the idea of an afterlife. The idea that death isn't just the end of life as we know it and a chance for our bodies to rot beyond recognition over time, assuming we choose a standard burial and are lucky enough to not meet a brutal end at the hands of a ravenous murderer, or be left at the hands of nature for a not so beautiful makeover. in that it's only the beginning of a new experience that's potentially less shitty than what we're facing in this life, is extremely palatable. The question I wish to pose today is, do we even want an afterlife? I ask this because I feel like some of the narratives we see regarding death are those of a longing desire to be reunited with loved ones once again. I relate to this a great deal as someone who never got to meet my paternal grandfather or talk to my maternal grandmother, who was alive in my youth but was stricken with Alzheimer's that made her unaware of her surroundings, which included me before I got to know her, but after she'd gotten the chance to meet me. I miss the joy that my late grandfather and uncle gave me when they entered a room, and miss spending time enjoying their company. Seeing people my age and younger meet tragic ends makes me heartbroken for all the things I take for granted, like having attended prom, graduating from high school, and celebrating the milestone with loved ones, learning to drive. These are milestones some children and their parents will never get to enjoy, and I cherish the fact I was lucky enough to have these memories. R.I.P. Nia Blanchard, Alexis Crawford, Ruth George, Cupcake McKinney, and so many more. Be safe and proceed in this life with caution. You can never be too careful. Because of all of this, I understand the prospects of there being no afterlife for many could be very unsettling. It reminds me of the lyric from the John Lennon song Imagine, sidebar alert, a song recently sung by many wealthy celebs to promote unity to many people's disdain, as the song also speaks of no possessions, a line sung by one with more than enough in a time of massive layoffs, end of sidebar alert, which features the lyrics, imagine there's no heaven, it's easy if you try, no hell below us, above us only sky. Even as an atheist, I'm not gonna lie, there's part of me that hopes at times for an afterlife. If there is no afterlife, I feel like the deaths of young children who pass before they're able to experience life are that much more tragic, to know that that was their life, that's what they experienced. It's that much worse to think that a cancer patient or other people with chronic pain died to not be met with some release of pain that they were experiencing. That's another point I want to tap into. Is death a release? While there is a part of me that thinks about death as a horrific end that could result in a loss of consciousness, I also see it as a release from the pain of living in this world we occupy. A world where one's skin color, gender identity, sex, religion, ability, sexuality, and other factors can cause for them to be ostracized, isolated, even murdered. A world where the bottom line is green and it's considered ethical by some to pay others pennies a day, and at times people weren't paid anything for their labor, and this continues to this day. One could make the argument that our mortality is the one thing that binds us together as humans. A rich man and a poor man born in 1800, as far as we know, are both dead now. And the one thing they both had on this planet was time. Time to learn, time to be happy, time to make meaning out of a life they didn't choose to be born into. But their mortality is the thing that makes them equal. No matter what they did or didn't have, they had time, and what they did with that time, no matter how long or short it was at least in some ways their choice. I think the fact that we can die should empower us to exercise caution. So many people die in preventable accidents. Certain diseases and conditions are treatable and or preventable. Collectively, deaths that result of these diseases and conditions are referred to as avoidable deaths. The number of avoidable deaths among persons aged less than 75 years old was 1.2 million in 2016. Let's see. This article presents statistics for the European Union, EU, on two indicators of avoidable mortality, namely deaths from treatable and preventable conditions and diseases. B, to just be grateful to be alive, as this could be our only shot to experience what life has to offer. That one day, not too long from now, we might be a tombstone that's stepped over during a game of graveyard kickball, if we're lucky enough to be buried in a densely populated area near a neighborhood. I've heard of young kids playing in cemeteries, and imagine being the spot for second base in more ways than one. In all seriousness, I guess For me, a lack of an afterlife gives me anxiety because it would be a permanent end. But it also gives me some peace for those who are lucky enough to live a full life. Because no matter what happened, at least they got the chance. They got their chance to live a life. They got their chance to make a name for themselves, earn a living their own way, and find some meaning of happiness. And what they did with that time, they did, and now their time is over. I feel like there is a calmness in the sense of completion. The thought of a never-ending afterlife gives me the feeling of being someone who can never fall asleep. If life were to never end, there would be no room for new people to come about. There would be no stakes to being safe or careful. It'd be like using a cheat code in a video game and gaining unlimited lives. I think that's the trouble for me. I don't want my consciousness to end, but I also like the sense of completion and equality death gives us. Though we see celebs like the late Aretha Franklin, may she rest in peace, adorned in likely expensive clothing, I hear she had a different outfit for each viewing. Iconic. In a gold-plated coffin. Those clothes and fancy casket don't change the fact that, no disrespect, she's just as dead and gone as the Jane Doe that was found unresponsive in an alleyway. And there's something gratifying to me to think that death is something money, fame, and power can't allow you to evade indefinitely. I think for me, I feel like a lot of us want afterlife to meet our supposed creator who is in line with our religious beliefs. If we possess them, to reunite with loved ones we miss or were never able to meet, and to also evade our fears of death truly being the end. But I question if afterlife would be something we'd really want to experience. Sure, we might love to experience seeing deceased loved ones, but I also feel if we got to see them, there could be some awkward encounters, some not so good encounters. Let's say you're queer and your deceased loved ones didn't know. Will their time in the afterlife change their mind towards sex and sexuality? Will they already know? Have they been watching how you live your life? Do they agree with your choices? That's another thing. A lot of us love to think our loved ones and or our ancestors are watching over us, protecting us and making moves in our favor. However, I question, when are they watching? All the time? When we sleep? When we break wind? Masturbate, if you get down that way? Or just in memorable family-friendly moments? One of the biggest concerns I feel regarding a potential afterlife is concerns regarding if things would remain civil between parties in afterlife. In some ways, I feel death would allow people to process their trauma, mature, as they've had years of time and no work to do to grow and process everything they went through. But I also wonder if someone would be vengeful or angry. I feel that some religions work out these concerns through the idea of a heaven and a hell. If you were sexually violated, your assailant will not be in this afterlife, assuming they didn't repent. People who have committed genocide will not be in the afterlife of their victims if they didn't repent. Let's say an afterlife existed where you die and you appear in a new life with all your memories, but it's just a dead world where you continue to live. I wonder how a 100-year-old woman would feel after giving her last breath to be alert and expected to do things again. Personally, I'd love an afterlife where one can process their trauma, rest indefinitely, if they wish to, visit with others they miss who have passed, and pursue goals and desires they have had in this world. But a part of me feels like that's wishful thinking, like a young child imagining that their parents' job has a recess and nap time. Also, I have to acknowledge, while this would be nice, I also feel we can and should process our trauma while we're alive and not expect a supernatural handout of time and resources. Would y'all want an afterlife? Part of me feels like an afterlife would be an imperative justice, as so many have died unjust deaths, oftentimes prematurely. However, I must ask, if life is unfair in all aspects in this realm we exist in, should death be any different? Is death any different? What would stop an afterlife from being just as harmful as life on this planet could be? Homophobes die, bigots die, xenophobes, racists, they all die. Would death be enough to de-radicalize them? Would murderers and victims break bread? Could you die in the proposed afterlife? What if you were seeking the end that would come with death? What would ensure each of us would have an afterlife that would make us happy? I guess I just feel that though I love life and being alive comes with joy and sadness, and I feel in afterlife narratives, we see the element of life, but we often see a lack of pain and suffering, and I wonder, isn't that part of the human experience? In Pixar's Inside Out, Riley, an 11-year-old girl, moves, and her emotions, which are made into characters, must manage her emotions. In the film, Joy, personified by Amy Poehler, tries to avoid Riley expressing sadness, which leaves her with only joy, disgust, anger, and fear, which leads Riley to become imbalanced, causing additional problems to arise. In that same vein, what is a human experience made without suffering? Would and should an afterlife have suffering and sadness? That's why I question if we truly won the afterlife. I question if we were given access to our deceased loved ones, if initially we'd be happy to reunify, but if we'd maintain that mindset years beyond. Maybe it'd be at the 50-year mark, the 100-year mark, whenever. Would you eventually have a problem or concern that would be enough to break you apart? Was your spouse faithful to you when they passed? Should they have been? Did they move on? In a hypothetical afterlife, it's so easy to think of problems that could arise. Though we love those who are no longer with us, who's to say that extended exposure to them couldn't bring up past traumas? Who's to say they won't have anger with you about the decisions that you made in their last moments? Jealousy about what you had they didn't get to have? If they passed on before you did and you got to be a parent and get married and the like? Part of me thinks that death would be the ultimate wake-up call to many of the importance of love and human connection, but a small piece of me thinks that to be human is to be flawed, and to be flawed can mean we hurt one another. I just question if death is enough to propel people to love one another and be kind, but I hope it would be. I think having the time to process the traumas of your life, the victories, and the not-so-good moments, and spend time devoted to whatever you couldn't get done would be great, but I also feel it could disincentivize us from getting stepped on Earth. I am personally a fan of the personal heaven idea, in theory, where we get to do whatever we please, but I also get concerned as some people's innermost desires are immoral, like pedophiles, serial killers, and rapists, which I feel creates a great moral dilemma. Personally, I'm open to the idea of an afterlife. I just feel that the human experience and the way I experience life is so vivid and real to me. The way that I can think, imagine, feel, envision things, it's hard for me to imagine that, like, this experience I'm having and even sharing with you right now through sharing these thoughts I've written down and am reading aloud to you to listen and process. To imagine that there could be a day when this could be no more is frightening, but I'm here to enjoy life and live it to its fullest and to seek and maintain happiness. So that's my journey. If there's an afterlife, that is truly icing on the cake for me. If there's an afterlife, 𝘎𝙪𝙗𝙗, I'm going to need an autograph and a conversation if you're down. Or maybe I could and should just let them rest, literally. If there's an afterlife, I'll have a slew of family members and close friends to meet and reconnect with. And if there isn't, I won't know or be able to care or know anyhow, and neither will you. And that's all I have to say for now. Thanks so much for listening to yet another episode of A Pop of Culture. Make sure to tune in each week for new episodes. And feel free to check out older uploads. This is my 4th episode, so I have 3 episodes already posted. And if you're watching this after the initial upload date, you have even more options to look into. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. 1, do you believe in an afterlife and why? 2, do you believe we need an afterlife? 3, what is your ideal afterlife? 4, who would you talk to if an afterlife was real? I can't wait to see your answers and post my own. Let's have a discussion in the comments below. I'm going to pin my comment with my answer so you can see what I have to say and we can get the discussion started. Let me know any other video essay topics that you'd like to see and hear from me. If you want to keep updated with this show, make sure to follow me on Instagram at apopofculturepod, on Twitter at @A_popofculture, and on TikTok at apopofculturesings. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching. And the fun doesn't have to end there. To your left, there is a playlist of all my video essay podcasts. So if you haven't seen any, if you want to catch up, feel free to do so. In the center of the screen is a button where you can subscribe if you wish to do so. And to the right is a playlist of all my covers, so you can binge watch those. You can check those out if you would like. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Love you all. Bye. And if you want to support me, if you want to support the show, feel free to tip. My Cash App is linked below. There is no pressure, but if you would like to support me and support the show, you can send me a tip and you will be featured in the credits of all of my videos. Love y'all. See y'all next time.